Thanks everyone for being here. I really appreciate it. My name is Alex. I'm growth lead at Zerion. This has been a really amazing experience for us to be here. It's one of the first big conferences that we've done in a while. And it's actually my first big conference in crypto and like Web3, so I just really appreciate it. What we're going to talk about today is something that I think all of us in the industry are pretty familiar with, which is like this hype cycle and the story that goes around what happens when NFTs blow up and become a big part of our lives. And specifically, trying to dissect and understand like why that happens, disprove a little bit the theory that this happens by accident and not by choice. Then we're going to talk a little bit about how to define what a community is in NFTs. Like, we really want to come up with a definition for how to think about this. And then the third thing we're going to do is talk a little bit about some of the trends that we see at Zerion, that I've observed coming out of NFTs in terms of how they can drive really community value and community empowerment. So I mentioned briefly, but just as a quick intro to me, I'm Alex, and I'm an American, but I live in Paris. So if you're in Paris at any time soon, hit me up. We'll grab a coffee or a glass of wine or anything like that. I'm pretty active on Sorare, Gods Unchained, and Forgotten Runes Discord. So if you're in any of those communities, you can definitely reach out to me as well. And of course, you can get me on Twitter at any moment. Anytime you want to chat, just definitely send me a message and we can talk. Quick note before we jump into the meat of the presentation here about Zerion, in case you don't know. Zerion's a leading DeFi portfolio tracker, with about 200,000 monthly active users. We support over 70 protocols and have processed over $1 billion in trading volume. Recently, Zerion has been investing an awful lot in NFT technology and NFT features. Specifically, we've built out the ability to create Apple Watch faces for your NFTs so you can show off your friends on your Apple Watch. We've built sending features so you can send NFTs to different wallets. And we're also building out custom widgets for your iPhone and iPad to help you show off your collection, make sure you can see all your NFTs pretty easily and in one place. This is all part of our vision for what I think that a lot of people in this space have seen, like DeFi and NFTs as kind of like cousins on two different planes maybe, or in two different universes. I'm not sure which metaphor fits better. But I think over time, what we believe at Zerion is that this gap, this difference between these two worlds is shrinking. It's becoming more and more and more one experience. And we believe at Zerion that when you track your assets, shouldn't really be just DeFi tokens or just NFTs. You should really be able to view that all in one place. And so one of the things that we're doing to facilitate that is Zerion is launching a wallet. It's going to be coming out soon. Don't have a firm date on that. My engineers are already raising their eyebrows at me talking about it. But if you want to sign up for the waitlist, our booth's over in the exhibition area. We'd love to talk to you and tell you a little bit more about it. But to get started, I think that it almost is like a cliche at this point to talk about this hype cycle around NFTs. The story driven mainly by eye-watering sales figures and crazy amounts of hype and the inescapability of some NFT projects on Twitter and online make the NFT hype cycle seem something that's almost like chaotic, out of control, spinning without any kind of real forces behind it or any kind of conscious decision making. And I sort of think that although I reject that narrative, I think that there's kind of a little bit to it, or at least you can see why if you're not consumed by this on a daily basis, if you're not reading and really in this space, you can see why people would think this. I think that these numbers and some of the stats that could be found, I mean, you can find hundreds of these types of figures, all start to contribute to this narrative that NFT projects are scammy, NFT projects don't do anything. I mean, I'm sure you've all had this like conversation with people like, why, I could just copy the JPEG. These are not like uncommon things. But what I think that message ignores is the conscious effort that NFT projects are putting into building what their real superpower is, and that's their community. So, I don't know, I tried to visualize a little bit how this happens. And I think that this is not all that unfamiliar or even all that earth-shattering to people in this space, but I think that most successful NFT projects are building some sort of like flywheel effect, where they start on Discord or Telegram. I don't know, there starts to be a conversation going on online. That eventually bleeds into crypto Twitter, which feeds FOMO. OpenSea launch happens, prices go crazy, and then the Discord blows up again. And this cycle happens over and over and over again, faster and faster and faster. And the popular narrative says that's happening sort of by accident. It's happening naturally. No one's doing anything to sort of drive that effort. And I think that's where it's really wrong. NFT projects that are succeeding today are creating communities that actually act as the engine that spins that wheel faster. They're the wind in the flywheel, if we continue the metaphor. And specifically, they're using participation, especially early participation, rewards, support, conversation, and interaction as like the way to then build long-term sustainable impact and visibility for their projects. So if we agree, and I think at this point it's almost a truism, I've heard a number of people up on the stage today talk about how community is everything to NFTs. What I haven't heard a whole lot about is how we go about defining an NFT community, excuse me. How do we define this term? What does it mean? We're all saying that it's central to the growth, and we believe, I certainly believe it, that it's central to the growth of an NFT project and long-term success. But how do we go about defining that? So I started looking around, searching a bit, to try to figure out how I could come up with some definition that made sense to me. And I arrived at this one because after a few different searches, I thought that this one sounded like it captured some of the things that I think are present in a lot of NFT communities. Community is a group of people that care about each other and feel they belong together. Feels okay. Starts to feel pretty good. I think there's elements of that you can sense in a lot of these projects. But I don't know, I think that specifically related to NFTs, it lacks a lot of real nuance and detail. So I dug a little bit deeper and came across one that especially related to NFTs made sense to me. And that's from Coindesk, Michael Casey, who's saying images basically act as shorthand. They act as like a signifier. They're a calling card that allow you to think about yourself, the group that you identify with, and how you like conceive of yourself as a person and as a digital like actor in this space. I think that's pretty good. This idea of belonging and membership is really powerful in NFT communities. But I still think that we could go a little bit further. And so to do that, I started to look at some other like really successful NFT projects that have built strong communities, tried to see if I could identify some signals or criteria, characteristics that actually defined what could make a community successful and thriving. So one I think probably most people in the room are familiar with is Kong. Kong, from the very beginning, had an extremely ambitious vision to build like a totally new like nation state, for lack of a better term. And they had Kong Cash, then they started Kong Land, and all this was like a digital community, a digital space to rethink citizenship, property rights, and things like that. At some point last year, earlier this year actually, they issued 500 citizens this like pack of NFT and community features. First one was a physical Kong Land passport. This passport basically allowed the owners of the passport to cryptographically verify their identity in physical presences, which opens up whole new areas for community engagement and also authentication. They also issued a unique alpha NFT, which then sort of solidifies and beefs up the entire like rarity and scarcity principles underpinning the community. And then they also actually opened up access to a private Discord that allowed those people to like even develop stronger bonds together. And so I think that that's a really good example of one type of strong community, and there's a lot of areas or criteria there that I think then show off what a good and strong community actually ends up looking like. Similar example is Doing Good. Doing Good, if you don't know, NFT marketplace allows artists and buyers to come together to basically make purchases and sales that do good for the world, basically. A portion of their sales all go to social causes. And even more than that, the social causes are actually curated by the community. The social causes are chosen by the people who are part of this group. And this is, I think, an important point because it also lowers the barrier for entry to getting involved in the community. You can be involved very, very quickly in Doing Good. And I think that the principles that they outline there are really important when we think about building this solid community base for a strong NFT project. So Parsing out some of these different things, I think that there's really three strong traits that start to emerge pretty clearly in terms of what makes a strong NFT community. First one, Michael Casey talked about, which is this membership idea, right? Like this idea that I'm belonging to something bigger than myself. I'm part of this group. I'm part of this collective. These people all have similar beliefs to me, and they all sort of think the same way. The second bit is something that Doing Good is a great example of, which is ownership. And I don't just mean ownership over NFTs themselves, but I mean ownership over the direction of the collective, like the way that the goals and the vision that the organization has together. There's a degree of ownership there. NFT members, people part of the group, feel like they can shift, shape, and influence how the NFT project functions. And the last bit I think that is increasingly a part of NFT communities is this purpose angle, this mission-driven way of thinking about. Actually, it's sort of similar to the way that DAOs function, where people are committed and motivated by doing something together that they can actually influence and own and change. So there's an important aspect of like changing the world here. And so I want to propose a different definition for what a community looks like in an NFT context. And my definition, feel free to disagree or add to it. This is just my feeling based on these observations, is that an NFT community is a group of like-minded members empowered emotionally and financially to shape the goals and direction of the group. And I think that the reason why I like this is that it encapsulates some of the other things that we found in some of the other definitions that I talked about earlier, but that it quantifiably talks about the emotional and financial impact that people can feel by being part of an NFT community. And that, for me, that's very important. And I think that the way we should maybe look at this and transition into the next stage is to talk about some of the trends that are even taking that definition and going a little step further. First, NFTs offer communities incredible opportunities to access different member perks. We were talking a little bit about Kong earlier, but owning an NFT is a fantastic way to do things like granting entry to physical parties or conferences or exclusive data content. Owning an NFT makes it really easy to offer membership exclusives and prizes in a way that is really intuitive and easy to use. And also the perks actually end up creating a sustainable system where the NFT value goes up for both the external people who might want to enter the community and the community holders themselves. So another important trend that I think we're seeing emerge more and more as communities get stronger is this idea of like NFT crossovers. NFT projects are increasingly going to push and be pushed by their users, their owners, to offer shared experiences. Good example could be Axie Infinity and Decentraland. Like maybe your Axies are actually interactable, playable, etc. within a Decentraland context. Transversal gameplay and interactivity is, I think, the way that this is all headed. And this notion of crossovers is important because it brings collaboration and it brings communities tighter together. Kind of the last trend, and probably one of the most interesting ones, I think, is this idea of self-rewarding systems. NFTs are possible now to alter and become rarer as their owners perform different actions or do things. OG crystals is a great example of this, where an originally simple crystal, looks like a rock, increases and changes, mutates every time it's sold. So it increases in value, and the NFT itself changes and becomes more unique. So the community itself is not only incentivized to buy, but also to sell pretty regularly because of the fact that it will alter the actual NFT itself. So I think that this means that scarcity and rarity for NFTs can be actually determined by the community themselves. We've actually at Zerion looked at doing something similar within our own app. If we issue an NFT, for example, that is basically incentivizing users to perform trades within our platform, to swaps, to deposit assets, to perform swaps, etc., that could maybe change and evolve as you go through the process of doing things on Zerion. There's a whole load of self-rewarding systems that could exist if the technology is utilized correctly, and if the communities themselves really want to get excited by it. So I kind of want to leave you with the last parting thought. I think that for me, these NFT projects are succeeding because community empowerment and thinking about how to bring like the maximum value possible is really at the heart of all they're doing. And like we at Zerion see this as the progression of a trend where the community is becoming absolutely central to what that NFT project stands for. And I just want to say thanks to everybody. That's it. Thank you.